Hello, MotoAmerica fans. It's time for another episode of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you may even learn something from this unlikely pair and their special guest. The mic is yours, Paul and Sean.
Hello, MotoAmerica fans, and welcome to another edition of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. In fact, this is episode number 50, and I'm going to immediately go to Paul, the Carruthers of the Carruthers and Bice, and say, Paul, we're up to number 50 now. Pretty good, huh? Nice number.
Yeah, 50 is a cool number. It's funny because it reminds me of my Cycle News days because we did 50 issues a year. And our issue number 50 was always our big year ender that had interviews with all the champions. And it was always our biggest issue of the year. And it was the most time consuming issue of the year. And then it was like, after that, we'd have 2 weeks off. So issue 50 was always like, oh yeah, let's get this thing done. And then we're good to go. So it's kind of funny that this is podcast number 50, because it kind of has a little special meaning for me as far as, you know, and their issue 50, you know, obviously they didn't start we didn't start in January like they do, but theirs is like right before the holiday. So it's always a good time to get it done.
Yeah, you know, I think I have pretty much every issue of Cycle News that I subscribed to and received, but the ones that are the 50th, the year-end ones, I have those in a different space because those were always the ones that had the glossy cover on it, and they were a lot thicker, all kinds of good interviews. That was always a good one to have, for sure. But so today we're going to be talking with Draik Beauchamp, who, you know, he's been with us for a few years now, and I want to be respectful and not call him a boy, but I will say he's a kind of a poster boy or a poster man, let me put it, for kind of what we are trying to do in MotoAmerica, Paul. I mean, he started out with us, you know, in KTM Cup, and you know, this year he was in Twins Cup, and he's sort of moved up through, and he's going to be continuing in our series, and, you know, possibly we'll have something to say about what he's doing next year. But you know, he's a good one. And Paul, I know we joke a lot because, you know, you from your days in Cycle News remember a lot about the old flat trackers and Rex Beauchamp and the fact that Drake's name spelled the same way, but pronounced Beauchamp. The only other thing I'll say about that is when we were at the AIM Expo, Drake was there. And I had met a guy who works for Twisted Throttle, and he had a booth set up. And I noticed the guy's last name was the same as Drake's. Well, wouldn't you know it, his name is pronounced Beauchamp instead of Beauchamp. So Drake came over, and they had a little conversation between the two of them, which was pretty funny. But
yeah, I've been giving Drake crap about his name since he started. It's funny, I've got a little story about him that not many people know, but it kind of shows the kind of work ethic he has, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not wrong. But his first season with us, which was 2016 in the KTM RC Cup Series, I mean, this kid mowed lawns during the week in order to raise the money to pay for his entry fees for his MotoAmerica races. So that kind of shows you that, you know, he's not some spoiled kid that dad's kind of taken care of him and paid for everything. I mean, this is a kid that's worked for everything that he's gotten, and that's kind of cool. And I think it's a testament to his work ethic, and it's also probably why he's going to have some longevity in this sport, because he's obviously, he's not afraid to dig in and get his hands dirty and work hard for what he wants to do. So it's kind of a cool little antidote to that.
Yeah, let's bring him in, Drake. So welcome, and tell us, welcome to the podcast. We've been wanting to have you on for a while. Welcome to episode 50, and you know, say hello and kind of tell us about that work ethic and kind of how you got started in motorcycles. Let's start out there.
Alrighty. So yeah, my name is Draik Beauchamp. I started out racing when I was 5 years old. I started riding when I was 4. The way that I got started into motorcycles was actually my dad bought his first motorcycle when I was 4 years old, and I immediately, you know, had interest in it and loved his bike and everything. So, you know, after that, he saw that, you know, I was interested, and he wanted me to have a respect for motorcycles and, you know, not turn 16, go buy a bike and kill myself on the street. So he said, you know, I'll get him started out right. And so he bought me a little electric pocket bike and I started riding around at a tennis court and a parking lot and just kind of riding around. And I eventually was like, hey, I want to go faster. So he started looking in the area, and he found some racing organizations like that did little mini moto stuff and parking lot racing. So I was on I don't know if you guys know this or know the brand, but have you ever heard of Bellata?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I was on a little Bellata 2.5 and also a TTR 50 with street tires on it. And then my dad, I was like, I want to go faster. And my dad bought me a Bellata origami, which would take like adults 50 or 60 mile an hour. And it's a little pocket bike. It was a riot. And so he put me on it, not exactly knowing what it was. But man, that bike was a lot of fun. But
yeah, those Bladas were, I remember they were one of the first original pocket bikes. I mean, they were tiny, and then they went, Polini had some, but that Blada, yeah, was one of the first ones I'd ever seen out of Italy. That's cool that's where you started with. That's pretty.
Yeah, it's kind of like the precursor to the Ovales or Ovales,
right? Right, Ovales, yeah.
Right. No, it was a cool deal, but that was when we lived in Indiana, and unfortunately, like some of the tracks closed down and the organizations kind of fell apart. So I was left for a little while, not riding or not racing per se, but I was still riding on our property in Indiana and at my grandfather's property on my KX 65, just tooling around and going fast still. And when we moved to Tennessee, my dad started looking for more racing organizations and started looking around and saw where there was, again, some parking lot racing over in Nashville. So threw some Motard tires on the KX65 and went over there and started ripping around. And then they're like, hey, we're going to be doing some Wera racing soon. Would you guys like to go with us? So I had to take the rider school. So funny story, I took the rider school on my KX65 at Nashville Super Speedway.
Wow.
Yeah, I came in bawling my eyes out, and my parents were like, "Are you okay? Like, what's wrong? Did you crash?" And I was like, "No, I can't keep up with the 1000s and the 600s."
Yeah, I bet.
And I would catch him in turn one, and it was funny because I was like, I'd make up all this time on him. So then it was recommended that I get onto a bigger bike, and so presented with the opportunity of getting a Honda RS 125, the 2-stroke.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I rode that for a few seasons. And then in 2013, my dad said, hey, I'm not going to be able to support your racing financially. I'll still help you get you to the track and stuff. But, you're going to need to pay for, everything except for food and, maintenance on the vehicle pretty much. So I started working when I was 13, mowing lawns and cutting grass. And if I didn't have the money to go to the track, we didn't go to the track. Wow. So, I started building my Ninja 250 and everything. And I actually paid my parents back because when we sold the 125, we bought the Ninja 250. And once once I built my 250, I then started paying them back, and I paid them back for the 125 that they used to buy the 250.
Oh,
so
wow.
The 250 is mine. Actually.
Oh, that's cool.
I paid them back for that. And then I got my SV650 in 15, and I raced that for 1 year. And then at the end of 15, I wasn't too sure what I was going to be doing. I know, like in 15, the RC Cup, that was the first year that it took place, and I had interest in it, but it was just way out of my price range. There was no way that I was going to be able to afford that, especially as a 15-year-old doing manual labor. So it was a deal that Russell Mastercar put my name out to Bob Robbins, and then Bob and my family started talking, and we ended up working together, and he gave me the opportunity to ride for him for 2 years in 16 and 17, which was an amazing blessing. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him helping me out and getting me on the KTM. And, it was really special being able to finish 5th in the championship in 17 and going to Spain. That was one of my biggest
cool.
and one of my proudest moments racing motorcycles.
Was that your first time leaving the country?
That was my first time leaving the country. Yep, it was for racing motorcycles.
That's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, it was actually my dad's first time leaving the country as well.
Oh wow, that's cool.
I didn't realize that. So you've known Bob Robbins for quite a long time then.
Yeah, I've known him since the end of 2015. It was kind of funny because we did some testing at Jennings GP in Florida, and in 15, and I was riding the bike and doing some okay times on it, and then I crashed the bike, and this is the first time that I ever dealt with trying out for a team or just being a part of a team, and I was like, oh man, the first weekend out, here I am crashing a bike and breaking stuff. Come on now, what are you thinking, Drake? So I was like, these guys aren't going to want me after I crashed the bike and everything. And no, they were totally cool with it. And they're just like, yeah, just you found the limit. And then, they use it as a learning opportunity. It's like, okay, what caused you to crash? What did you do? What happened? Were you putting input in? It was a really cool experience working with those guys.
So just to review for the listeners and people that may not know, so we're talking about Bob Robbins, who has been involved with Quarterly Racing, and he was kind of the one behind, it was his bike, the bike that Michael Barnes raced this year, the Ducati, and Bob's been involved. He's been working with Dale Quarterly for quite a while, and Drake also mentioned Russell Mascar, who is the guy behind all these bikes that say RBOM on the side of them, which stands for Russell's Band of Misfits, which is Russell Mascar. So to those 2 points, Drake, you've got a known guy in Bob for years and years. He's been involved in the paddock, but was very involved in Twins Cup. And Russell, who's been extremely involved in Twins Cup, and, it gets a lot of riders to race, at a lot of our rounds. And then was that an influence to you at all to move from the RC Cup into Twins Cup instead of going to Super Sport or something else?
Yes, because I'd known I don't have much 600 experience. And so whenever I was looking at everything and just the cost of everything as well, it made more sense financially and in my state of, competition or being competitive, to do the Twins Cup. And that's why in 2018 was kind of a rough year for me, but it just ended up not working out with the team that I was racing for, and I parted ways with them at where was that? Pittsburgh in 2018, and then I took off New Jersey, and I kind of regrouped, and I actually called up Russell Mascar and I said, hey, do you think that we could throw a bike together for Barber? And of course he was happy to throw a bike together for me, and he made that possible. So we got that figured out. We went to Barber, and I actually finished 6th, and that was the highest position I had finished all year. And it was funny because it was the first race that I did in the Twins Cup, and I just immediately out of the gate started doing good. So it was confidence inspiring, of course.
Well, I didn't realize you had such a background in Twins Cup with different people there, so it makes sense that you were involved with that. How did it end up that this year, how you were racing on a Yamaha, which known to be a pretty quick bike, but it needs some development. I'm not saying it's not a strong bike. It's kind of at the beginning of its development cycle compared to those SV650s. And you can speak to this since you had an SV650. So what was your decision behind the Yamaha?
I believe at the beginning of the year when the SVs were figuring out power and everything, and the FZ and the MT had already figured out the power, that, there was enough of a differential between the handling and power that's what made the FZ better, just get it in there and get it out the corner. But, the SV has gotten quicker for sure. So it's time for the FZ MT to develop more. So I kind of took a step in that, and I had been running all year. I'd come to find out at Sonoma that I hadn't had cartridges in my forks. So, immediately dropped some money and put some cartridges in the forks and, started messing around with geometry. And I started working with Rovum Engineering on trying to get the bike to handle better. And from where the bike started and then to where I finished with the bike, it's light years ahead of where it was, but it still has a lot more to go, in my opinion.
And then, man, Road America. I mean, you did great there. I think that was that before you had some things figured out? I think you found out you had a bent frame, didn't you, as well?
Yeah, I had a bent subframe, or not subframe, swing arm. My bad.
Oh wow.
I had a bent swing arm. Yeah, it was bad enough that like when you took the axle out and then we took the swing arm off, and we tried to put it back through, it wouldn't line up with the hole.
Oh man,
it was severely tweaked. But that's what I was saying. Like, the thing is a rocket ship, so it's a good bike to be on, but just getting the chassis figured out is a big deal.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about that first race win. Obviously, there's nothing like winning, and
Right.
to win in that class and kind of show that you belonged. Is that kind of how it felt for you?
It did, and it was just a lot of it, hard work paying off, and I was really, I was really happy that I won there, and I was really hoping that I was going to be able to carry that through and get another race win this year, because same thing in 2017, I got one win. And, who likes to just win once? I don't. I'd rather win a few times and have a few under my belt. So to get one at least is nice. But, I like to get more.
Yeah, it leaves you wanting more.
Right. It was awesome. I mean, I didn't realize how fast my bike was there. It was kind of funny because, I was getting in like this, super tuck going in. And like on the last lap, I was like, okay, somebody just hasn't shown me their hand and they're going to pass me at the start finish line, and that's going to be it. And, I was getting closer and closer to the finish line. And I was like, oh man, nobody's coming up beside me. I'm like, okay, I'm doing good. So, passed by them, and, that was a great feeling being the first to the finish line.
Now, you also didn't make many mistakes. I mean, looking at the points table for the season, it looks like you're one of the few. You're definitely one of the few at the top that managed to score points in every single round. So there wasn't a lot of mistakes made on your part.
Yeah, that was actually my goal for this year, and that I'm really proud of. That was the first thing, like before I even threw a leg over the bike this year, was points win championships, and you can't win championships if you keep falling down every weekend. So that was kind of my take on it, and I set out with the goal to, score as many points as possible. And I was like, okay, generally you have one, maybe two DNFs, but, try to minimize that as possible. So, it worked out pretty good. If I just finished a little better, maybe I could have got the championship. So
Did you have any practice crashes at all, or did you stay upright the whole season?
I only had one crash this year, and that was at VIR in qualifying one, I believe it was. So that it was funny because I crashed. I picked the bike back up. I rode in. I got a new windscreen. I went back out and I set a faster time.
That's cool.
Is that what banged your swing arm, that crash?
No, that wasn't.
Oh, what caused it? Do you know?
So another thing of being a kid who works for his own racing, I didn't buy my bike off the showroom floor. I bought mine as a salvage bike, actually. So, that was my $1,800 special right there. So I spent $1,800 on that bike. So I ended up building that from the ground up, and it's kind of a way bro love deal.
That's cool. Well, that's good that you found out that there was something up with that and you were able to fix it. It obviously affected you. Noticed pretty quickly that it made a difference in the bike.
Not Not as much as you would think. I noticed a difference like under braking, but other than that, not much.
Huh.
It was really odd. And maybe it's just because I haven't developed enough as a rider, maybe to understand it, or maybe it doesn't make that big of a difference. I don't know. But then again, it is a twin. It's not like a bigger bike where it has a rigid chassis and that you feel everything with it. It's different.
Yeah. One of the things I want to mention is, I talked a little bit in the beginning about the AIM Expo this year. So, it was nearby me in Columbus, only a half an hour away. So I was there. And when I walked to the booth, the first thing I saw at the booth was, Bobby Fong's bike. Well, then right next to it, all of a sudden I realized, oh, that's Drake's bike. And then I looked over a little more, and there's Drake sitting at a table signing autographs. So I didn't know and didn't think that we had that set up ahead of time. So you and I talked a little bit, Drake, and it was real cool that you were there, had your bike. You were basically responsible for the whole thing, getting the bike in the booth. And, I remember helping you wheel it over to another display. So talk to us about what you were doing with the AIM Expo and the fact that you kind of helped us out with that. That was a really nice thing you did.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys for having me. Just working together is a good thing. Just bringing people over to you and bringing people over to me. It's a cool deal. But so I was there to begin with Kai from A Racer Speed Tech. That's the ECU that I've been running on my FZ07 all year. So that's why we work together. And Kai is a great guy, and he invited me to come up there with him. And, he's like, hey, you might bring the bike as kind of a display showpiece. And I was like, of course. So we went up there. It's funny because I've been on the road so much. I was only home for like 2 days or something like that, or a day. Like we came back. No, it was one day. Yeah. We came back for Tuesday, and then I was back on the road on Wednesday after Barber. We had the Monday deal and the banquet on Monday. Drove home that night, got home at 3:00 in the morning. I actually took Kai up to the Tail of the Dragon, US 129 up there, 318 curves and 11 miles.
Right.
It's a great road. If you ever have the opportunity to go, I highly recommend it. I took him up there in a Mini Cooper, and we had a good time, and then came back home, packed up a bag, and we left that Wednesday for AIM. So we got up there, started doing our thing, and I was there, promoting A Racer, but also there to network and, possibly get some sponsors for next year, see if there was any interest in that. And hopefully some of those have proved to be fruitful. I've got a few not completely, how should I say it? Not completely set in for 2020, but contracts still need to be signed and stuff, but hopefully we'll have them on board for this year. But then I saw that you guys were there as well, MotoAmerica, and none of the riders were there. I know Gagne and Paul's bike were there, but I can't remember who asked me if I would come over with my bike, and I came on over and asked Kai, and Kai was like, yeah, of course. So I started handing out Air Racer stuff while I was over there as well, but started signing posters, and it was a cool deal.
I think I know who will ask you, Drake. You don't have to be shy. I think it was our umbrella girl, Leslie Gomez, who wanted you to come over and stand next to her. I think she kind of took a little bit of liking to you. Am I right about that? Or was it vice versa?
Sean.
Did it all. We did it all for the press. That's all.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
I got you. Well, I bought into it. I was thinking there was a budding romance there. Got me all excited even more about MotoAmerica. So,
Sean.
She's a good girl. And very nice. And just wanted to get to know her. I did, and hopefully I'll see her around next year in the MotoAmerica paddock.
Okay, not to change the subject, but actually to change the subject. Drake, you seem really in tune with the realization that racing isn't just what happens on the racetrack. Your participation in the AIM Expo is a perfect example of that. Hunting for sponsors, doing the right thing. but thinking about the off-track stuff and treating it with equal importance to actually what happens on the track in order to get your career moving. What has this something you've always realized? Is it new that you've sort of taken on this role as a guy that's trying to develop his own team?
I've understood the importance of it. Yes. I'm starting to realize more of the social media side of things. I will be frank and honest about that, I haven't been on top of that as much as I should have. And that's why I'm making a change for this year and adapting for 2020. But I have understood that in the sense that you have to put out a good image for people to, I can't show my ass because, if I burn bridges or if I do anything bad, then that's going to negatively impact me. But, and that's the thing. Racing is so, it's such a small world and it's a small paddock that if you do something, not very nice or you don't come across as a good person or be a good person, that you're not going to make it very far. So I've understood that from a very young age and to, be a positive influence to people. So that's why I say that.
Talk about social media. The other day, I saw a photo of you and your dad, and your dad Curtis, who I think a lot of, and talk to him on occasion. I'll come over into your pit area, and he's always got some food or something to offer me, which is always kind of nice. But the other day, I saw this photo of you and your dad with laptops both next to each other in pretty deep thought, and I was like, man, must be planning something for 2020. Is that what you guys were doing, working on your program, or what was?
Yeah, actually, my dad was making a list of things that need to be done, and he was working on some Excel spreadsheets, and I was working on uploading GoPro footage to Dropbox. So yeah,
you guys were right at it.
I was also dealing with some emails and emailing people, and the whole shebang.
That's cool. So, what can you tell us about next year? You had mentioned about Super Sport, and some people have gone, KTM Cup or Junior Cup to Twins Cup, and then, maybe to Super Sport at that point. Alex Dumas, I think, is saying something about, I've heard he might move up to Stock 1000, and, he's ridden 1000 a little bit. Where you're a taller rider. Where are you at? Are you going to do Super Sport, or what can you tell us what you might be doing next year?
So funny you should ask. I'm actually going to be doing some testing and racing on 1000 because that is my plan for next year, is to race Stock 1000. Making that jump up because honestly, I can't afford Super Sport. And it's a very, very competitive class. And, I don't want to go there and spend the numbers that I have heard from other people. It's about $160,000 to run a 600 Super Sport program. And it's about 60-ish on a Stock 1000.
Wow.
So it's a lot more doable on a Stock 1000 deal to do that. So that's why, as a racer, I feel like, yes, it's a big step up, but on the other hand, going up, in a punching class, punching above your weight, eventually you'll get stronger, you'll learn, and you'll end up being a better rider because of it. So, I don't really have much of an expectation per se, except to learn as much as I possibly can and to, be competitive. Honestly, that's really what it comes down to. If I got a podium here or there, or hell, if I even won, I would be ecstatic. I would be, that would be awesome. But realistically, just being up there and dicing it up with those guys and to learn more, that's what I really want to do.
Does your size have anything to do with it at all? I mean, having said that, obviously Stefano Mesa, he's a little bit smaller stature compared to Ashton Yates, who seems to be fit for that bike. Was that any kind of an influence with you being a little bit of a taller rider?
Yes, and that's been kind of like the deal with. That's why I got out of Junior Cup, and then I moved to Twins, and then now to thousands is just, my size does help with that. And, I don't have to worry that if I put on 10 pounds of muscle mass or 15 pounds of muscle mass about that, really affecting 1,000, on a twins or a junior cup bike, forget it. That's, horsepower down the drain. With the 1,000, it makes enough that it doesn't matter as much.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think that's a good fit for you.
Yeah. So that's my plan with it. And if Alex is up, that'll be a good time.
So you mentioned you're going to start to ride 1,000. So that'll be during the off season, some club racing and stuff?
Yeah, actually some club racing and some track days. And it's funny because I have ridden and I have more hours on thousands than I do 600s.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So It's nothing completely new.
Yeah. Any certain bike? Is it a Kawasaki? You on an R1? What have you been riding, Drake?
So I've ridden a handful of bikes, but the two that I'm really looking between is a R1 and a Kawasaki.
Yeah.
The Kawasaki obviously is a very dominant bike in the class. But then again, Ashton Yates did do really good on the R1 right out of the box. So we'll see what goes on there. But I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, that's one of the reasons I really do racing, or just one of the main reasons, is for the speed of things. So going fast is what I really enjoy doing, and I love the adrenaline. So if I can get up there and get on a fast bike and do that, I'm just going to enjoy it even more.
So you actively looking at junkyards now to find the bike? and checking swing arms?
I'm checking the swing arms, you bet. So I've got a few things in the works right now. We'll see if any of those prove to be fruitful. But I'm looking. Fortunately, I'm able to look at new bikes now, or possibly race prepped bikes that are not bent. Hopefully, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, and it's legit like getting me excited about this. There are times where I get to the point where I'm like, okay, this is my goal, racing stock 1,000, and I don't have like much emotion tied to it. But whenever I do get emotion tied to it, I'm like, man, I'm racing stock 1,000. This is gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
So getting giddy about it.
Drake, I've told you this before. Now I should have checked this. Are you 19? That's how old you are, right?
Yeah, I am 19, but I will be turning 20 on January 11th.
And we'll first of the year. Okay. So You're 19, and I've told you this before. You seem to be 19 going on, I don't know, about 27 maybe. I'm not going to say you have an old soul, but you are very mature for your age. Are you an only child?
I am an only child with my dad and stepmom. I have 2 half sisters, but okay. I've never lived with them before.
Okay. Because the reason I mention that is that, they always say if you're an only child, you kind of grow up quickly because your playmate is most of the time, your parents, or in this case, your dad. I know your dad and you were very close, but do you think that's contributed to your maturity?
Yes, I truly believe so. I think that, just being my, my father's son in that aspect. Yeah, he's a very, he's a nice guy, but he runs a tight ship, so that's kind of. So is my stepmom, running a tight ship all my life. So with that being said, just having that maturity and discipline on that end just kind of hardens you up at a young age.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Now, I've also heard that in addition to the racing, that there's like this maybe a budding modeling career in store for you. Like, and I mean, obviously, as Sean pointed out, the Umbrella Girls sort of found you appealing. So, are you going to take that to the next level and actually, start to spike the hair a little bit, or what?
Yeah, we'll see if that proves to work out, or if I can do that while I race and work, I think that would be a really cool opportunity. And, you know, uh, my theory with a lot of things is, just try it, see how it works out. If it works out, good, but don't live with that regret in your life that, oh, I wish I would have tried this out before. Just try it out. Go, feet first into it.
And it seems like it beats the crap out of mowing lawns. It just, that's my feeling on it anyway.
Yeah, that does. Yeah, mowing lawns compared to that, no. Especially here in Tennessee, it gets hot. It gets really hot.
Yeah,
I bet.
Draik, talk about your last name for a minute. We talked in the beginning, and Paul had joked about Rex Beauchamp or Beauchamp, and you met that guy at the AIM Expo and had a conversation with him, which I thought was kind of cool. We don't have to give much away about it, except instantly the guy pretty much wanted to give you like free stuff. So I'm like, man, that's pretty incredible. But talk a little bit about your name and where it comes from and why it's pronounced that way, so people understand that.
So it is a French and British name. So, it's more of a French name with, Beauchamp, but the English version of that is either Beauchamp or Beauchamp. And there are different variations in between it, but people that moved over here to the United States, it's Beauchamp or Beauchamp or whatever. Over in France, it's Beauchamp. But I don't remember exactly which one of my family members or where they came from to tie that into, if they were actually French and then they moved over here. But I just know that's my lineage.
Yeah. And the guy we talked to knew that Beauchamp was right for certain, it's a proper pronunciation in many areas. So,
right.
Yeah.
No, it's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, the guy, you should have seen it, Paul. The guy pretty much was like, hey, anything you want here, you can, he heard he was a racer and he had the same last name. So he was like, hey, anything you want here, just take it home with you or something. It was kind of funny. I was like, how does this work?
I need to find some Carothers around that'll give me stuff.
Seriously.
I could be Carothers.
Draik, one of the things I see with you in the paddock, there's two things I want to ask you about with this. You have this sort of interesting alliance with Rocco Landers, who doesn't race in your class, but he's usually hanging around with you. It's so funny. You wear his coat, he wears your coat, but yet you seem to have a pretty good rapport with a lot of the riders and the younger riders. Do you feel like you have some sort of a, how do I put it, responsibility to bring other kids along? Is that something for you that you are interested in?
So like guys like Rocco, he's a fast, talented, good kid. And, I know what it's like being the young kid in the class and everything and, just maturing and whatnot. So if I can help kids make it up like a little quicker and, teach them what I know, like, how to be and how to act and everything in a better way than I did that at that age, that's what I would like to do. And that's what I like to do. And I like to just be a positive influence on guys like Rocco. But, he's a good kid for sure. And, if he wasn't, I wouldn't be hanging around him. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. And,
we hang out and talk about racing and, everyday life. It's cool stuff.
Yeah, that's good to have that kind of. It's good. There's a lot of that fellowship and rapport kind of in our paddock. I mean, it's a good paddock, right? I mean, you can kind of walk around and almost talk to anybody. And are there riders in the series, whether it's superbike riders or guys that you look up to or get counsel from who might be riders in the paddock, or how does that work for you?
So he's not as much or as prevalent in the paddock anymore, but my biggest mentor would have to be Jason DiSalvo.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I've known him since I was a wee lad, but he's been a very big influence to me. And, another one of those guys that if I didn't have him around, that I wouldn't have made it this far. So, thank you to him again. But, Jason's a good buddy of mine. And, hopefully I'll get to see him soon again.
So that's interesting. You are from Indiana. You now live in Tennessee. Jason DiSalvo grew up in Batavia, New York, but I think he lives in Alabama now, or he did at one point. How did you end up getting in touch with him and hanging out with him? How did that end up happening?
That ended up being it was at first the Jason DiSalvo Speed Academy.
Oh yeah, right, school. Okay.
And I had a mutual sponsor between him, Apex Manufacturing at the time. In 2010, or was that 2010? No, 2012. I had 2012. So I actually did some of the Jason DiSalvo schools and started working with him, and it was a really cool deal working like that with him at a young age. And then it just started progressing, and then he had the Ride Academy deal that he had going on, and I did that with him as well, and just learning like that, and it was a really good learning tool.
That's cool. Yeah, I didn't know that you had a connection.
Yeah.
Okay, Sean, I'm going to give you one more question.
I was actually going to throw it over to you when we mentioned Jason DiSalvo. I didn't know if you wanted to ask Drake if he can do any kind of a certain impression like Jason could do or not, but I don't know if we want to go there now. Huh?
No, we won't go there.
Okay, we'll stay away from that.
Well, it is funny that he said he met Jason when he was a wee lad, and it's funny that Jason DiSalvo is still a wee lad.
I knew there was something going to come along there.
I like Jason. I've known him for a long time as well, obviously.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He and a couple of years ago he was working with Steve Scheibe and rode that BMW a little bit too. So, hey, so since I've got one more question. Here's the thing I want to ask you, Drake. I'm pretty sure that being 19, I think you probably were born after the Seinfeld era, and you go by the name The Drake. Is it a reference to that show and the guy who went by The Drake on that show at all?
You'll have to ask my parents, because my parents kind of dubbed me that because we're kind of sitting around and we're like, well, it can't be like the Tennessee Tornado because, Colin Edwards is the Texas Tornado and all that stuff. And they're all the ones that they were thinking of. They'd already been taken. They'll just be like, "All right, it's The Drake."
That's funny.
Like, all right, cool.
Yeah, there was a guy they always called him the Drake on Seinfeld. It was I think it was probably spelled different just because your name Draik is pretty unusual, and it's not spelled like the male duck. But I kind of thought you should be like Barry Sheen. Barry Sheen back in the day always had Donald Duck on his helmet. Did you ever think about having a duck as your mascot?
I haven't. Okay. No, I know that a male mallard is a drake.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know about that. But no, like the Drake, I think it's kind of cool. I like it. But yeah, I just had somebody at the Armor race this last weekend at Vintage Fest bring that up about it's like, you're probably too young to know about Seinfeld, and I was like, you are correct. I'm a young man. I don't know that. I know some older music, but no, nothing like that. So yeah, we went into like the whole description about The Drake and that whole episode, and you never knew who The Drake was. All right, cool.
And what's the significance of the 77?
That was the year that my dad was born, and quite honestly, I think it's a pretty BA number. You don't really see that number very often. So
have you ever run that number on a bike?
77?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been running that.
Oh, what am I saying? Of course, that's your number now. Yeah. Oh my God, sorry. It's
Sean. Yeah. Are you okay? Are you
Sean? Sean's thinking more about ducks.
Yeah, I
should be thinking more about numbers.
You're right. It's funny. I will tell you about that number though. For some reason, I don't know why, and it's the way that number is set up. And against that camouflage, it might be because I'm colorblind. Sometimes it looks like a 22 to me. Has anybody ever said that to you?
No.
Okay. Okay. I should have quit while
John. Yeah, let's quit while you're behind.
That's 77. Okay.
Well, yeah. Drake, let me thank you for coming on the show. It's kind of cool that you're on our 50th, and you're a solid young man, and I'm looking forward to seeing what next year comes by for you. I think that going to Stock 1000 is a good idea, and I think you'll perform well there, and continue to work hard in that off-season stuff that you're going to do, and it'll pay off, and you'll never have to mow lawns again. So thanks for coming on, and Sean, thank you as always for joining in and saying stupid stuff that makes us laugh. So,
You ever run on a motorcycle before?
yeah. Sean, has anyone ever thought about calling you Sean?
Yeah, every once in a while I get called that. Not too often. It's usually Miami Bice, but that's a show that Drake knows nothing about too. So,
or mine, which I call you the Bice is right.
The Bice is
right.
That show, yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah, I know the Bice is right.
Oh, okay,
There
you
you
can call
go.
me that, Drake.
He's rarely right, so that's what makes it funny.
The Bice is wrong.
Bob.
Yeah, Bob.
Okay, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right.
And thanks to the listeners for tuning in. And you'll hear from us again next week. So you guys take care.
Thanks, Drake. See you, Paul.
Thank you guys for having me on.